Space Marine 2 really isn't all that hard. A tier list of how the classes play isn't really needed because the game is fully playable as any class at level 1 with no upgrades, which means there is only one other relevant, quantifiable measure with which to rank them: drip. I'm sure you've seen enough Ultramarines, and they are pretty boring to look at anyway, so there, pretty looking chapter colors, and there, pretty cosmetics. Both the game and I'm going to start with the Tactile Marine. It's the unspecialized Build-A-Bear Space Marine class. Their tabletop equivalent doesn't even have an ability, so Saber threw their hands up and gave them a Pokédex scan. They understandably start off the most boring cosmetically, and eventually get Roman Centurion cosmetics. As you might be able to tell from my name, I know quite a bit about the Romans. With respect, the Space Marine copycat versions of their historical counterparts are a little bit ugly as sin. There are two versions, one is attached to the helmet and vertical, and the other is raised and horizontal. These are based on Roman plumes, or Christi. The two Christi depicted in-game are based off the ones worn by Roman legionnaires and centurions respectively. This implies that a full Space Marine legion would be wearing these cosmetics and would look something a little bit like this. Credit where credit is due. I am impressed that their in-game depictions are relatively historically accurate. That credit is immediately taken back again, though, because you can't change the colors. It's completely unjustifiable too, because while Roman plumes are most often depicted red, this is just due to pop culture. There were also definitely black and yellow ones that look very pretty, and I think we can reasonably assume that if a dye color was available, someone probably painted their Christa with it at some point. Warhammer of course didn't get the memo, and so they are always white and red. Your Legion colors don't matter, you can't customize the helmet, it's always white and red. In Space Marine 2, the vertical Christa is cemented firmly onto the helmet, while the horizontal Centurion Christa is attached via a crest holder, so it stands up further vertically. I'm surprised to say this is actually historically accurate, though inevitably not universally. The Space Marine's vertical Christa looks pretty ugly because it's so short. It looks like a tiny mohawk. Compare this to a much longer old Greek plume, which looks fantastic. I thought this was done to prevent clipping because there are backpack attachments for another class. The Vanguard stole Cal Kestis' BD-1 and strapped them to his backpack, but the Tacticus Marine doesn't have any backpack cosmetics that could potentially clip, so I don't really know why this was done. Not being able to customize the colors is pretty much a death knell for these helmets in and of itself. The Centurion helmet having its mask tinted by the tertiary trim color is pretty cool though. It's pretty much the only cosmetic that lets you really see what each of these would look like in one condensed flat area, as it's used mostly as trim on other cosmetics like pauldrons. It looks pretty good in black, though other colors can look rough. As I said, none of these colors are really meant to take up this much surface area, and the Sotek blue, or green, apparently, especially makes one of their texture maps stand out like it's just been cooked. Now, I stayed talking about these two cosmetics for so long because they're basically the only interesting cosmetics the Tacticus has available. Well, sorry, they also have a Roman laurel on their helmet, which does genuinely look pretty nice. And their pauldron might also be the most gaudy in the entire game, and you can feel free to wear it if you want to blind your enemy to death. Aside from that, you can put a belt on that clips like fuck, or wear two acronches at once, neither covering an armpit because Space Marines are idiots. For those who don't know anything about medieval armor, and why would you, an acronch is a jousting plate to protect the artery in your armpit. Space Marines are terminally medically averse to actually wearing their acronches properly for some reason. There is not one Marine I have ever seen get it right, and it's honestly kind of funny. They've got two hearts, so if they pierce the artery, I guess the plan is just to outproduce the blood loss. Overall, the Tactical Marine gets a solid B, maybe B+. A lot of its cosmetics look good on their own, though I will say basically every Tactical Marine I've ever seen, as a random, has the fashion sense of a crayon. Because it's way too easy to overdo these cosmetics, well, that's exactly what they do. I did my best to recreate the monstrosity shown in that last clip, and yeah. Please don't overdo these cosmetics, as easy as that may be. I can see why though, because the Centurion mask is going to be tinted the whole armor's trim color without proper customization, and just using the default chapter colors can end up with abominations like this, where you're rocking 4 main colors that all take up equal space on the armor, with seemingly random placement. Let's talk about design and contrast a little bit real quick. A little fun thing about Space Marines is that they look astronomically better when their legs are black, but the vast majority of chapters have all of their armor one color, and so they look like silly little action figures, which looks fine in real life when you're playing the tabletop and they're really tiny. But when they're being depicted in literally the best looking game I've ever seen, they stand out just a little bit. It's basically impossible to have a Thunderhawk ride that doesn't look like one of those meme XCOM 2 runs with characters from half a dozen universes. You have to have some contrast in the armor to make the parts that are a stark color stand out, and having the entire armor set be one color makes you look like you dunked it in a vat of tar. There are two classes that do this really well by default as a result of their armor, which are Vanguard and Sniper, both in Phobos. Space Marines have three types of armor depicted in this game, which are in order of protection, Phobos, then Tacticus, and yes, it's really called that, and then Gravis. Sniper and Vanguard are in Phobos, Tactical, Assault, and Bulwark are all in Tacticus, and Heavy is the only class currently in Gravis. There are pretty much no gameplay differences between these whatsoever, because why would there be? Sniper and Vanguard, being in Phobos, don't have the placard that usually covers the lower torso, which shows off the black undersuit underneath, and it adds a nice contrast to the rest of the armor. With black legs, it keeps the focus on the upper torso, and the helmet, which is where you want people to be looking anyway. With other armors, Heavy's Gravis armor especially, it's really confusing where the eyes are meant to be drawn to. Which of the Assault's 18 pieces of greeble are my eyes supposed to be looking at? Even with Ultramarines, this problem isn't really solved because there's so much gold trim everywhere. Don't you think writing a paragraph on your leg is sending the wrong message about where you're meant to be looking? With Phobos, because so much more of the armor is de-emphasized, you can capitalize on that to make the design as a whole much more clear and a lot more cohesive as a result. Still gotta have a colored crotch plate though, sorry, that's law. I'll circle back to the Phobos armors later. I want to go over the armor that takes a look at everything I just said and does the complete opposite, which is Assault. To start with the good parts, Assault does have the best looking helmet in the whole game. It's got the laurels and a really good looking tint on the front of the helmet that makes it look a little bit like a mask, and no other class gets one that's like this that doesn't also come with inbuilt low clearance accidents. Now that is pretty much the only good thing I have to say about Assault's cosmetics though, because the person behind these cosmetics really likes exceptionally noisy designs. This is a problem with all of the classes for sure, but with Assault it is especially very noticeable. All of the cosmetic sets feel like they're assaulting me, which is fitting, I suppose, with their lack of coherency and just greeble everywhere. They don't really fit together, it's just kind of random crap everywhere that they can fit. The Jetpack cosmetics especially are all ugly. They're like hood ornaments that would surely fuck with the aerodynamics of the armor. They do come with one saving grace though, which is the unibrow helmet. With Ultramarines, it does look close enough to Squidward. Anyway, F. See me after class and start taking notes from Bulwark. Bulwark's cosmetics feel much more cohesive and don't have random greeble everywhere, including an impressive array of shields to pick from with genuinely quite incredible designs, even if the skeleton holding an hourglass is a little bit like, what the hell, dude? None of the other classes get customization like this for their class's unique bit. Like, even Sniper can't customize their cloaks. Though even Bulwark themselves suffers from a weird lapse in customization options. The Bulwark is Space Marine 2's rendition of the tabletop's Blade Guard Veteran, the model of which has a tabard. The Bulwark thought that wasn't cool enough for them, and so they snuck into their librarian's locker room and stole the rest of their robes too, to complete the look. The Bulwark gets librarian robes, but can't change the color of them at all, so they look a little bit like they're entombed in random linen, which doesn't exactly convey psychic, it makes them look like a really dangerous street beggar. For the record, librarians, which are where these robes come from, are psychics, which come around pretty rare and are rather valued in 40k. The Bulwark just having their robes is kind of baffling because they're not psychic whatsoever. They can have an LED lightsaber toy that plays Duel of the Fates, but that's it. Then again, considering how blatantly overpowered Bulwark is, maybe they are psychic. Bulwark gets a B almost entirely for the shield cosmetics. The robes are cool, but without being able to color them, they look pretty dry and are hard to make feel your own. Apart from those two things, they add basically nothing to the table, and don't have symmetrical knee cosmetics for some reason only known to the most elite Games Workshop lore masters. We haven't had the most fantastic showing so far, and Heavy does come with a unique set of Gravis armor that only they get, which should be a good sign for its uniqueness, and so of course Heavy has the most generic set of armor cosmetics in the entire game. Now I do have to give Heavy credit, this is using the crotch so wrong, it's almost impressive. Oh god, you could make it worse. You do have to play Heavy for several decades to get a chess piece that doesn't cover up your entire face, but when you do, it also comes with the longest CVS receipt in the entire game, which is a huge plus. Heavy also comes with unique Gravis helms with funny tusks that look like they're probably meant to look intimidating, but actually look like an AT-AT. These are apparently expanded rebreathers, because Space Marines definitely need those with their 8 lungs. Reading this back, it sounds like I'm forgetting stuff, but I'm really not. That's really all Heavy has. Their custom war gear selection is what flavor of ridiculous-looking spike you want strapped to your back. Ultimately, C. Nothing interesting, but at least not actively assaulting my eyes like well, Assault. Now we jump from the heaviest armor straight to the lightest. Sniper and Vanguard are both in the lighter Phobos armor, with one less armor pip which isn't afraid to show off their hot abs. Both of the Phobos armors are absolutely ready for war, as they've got umpteen pockets to hold ammo and copies of the Codex Astartes to burn. None of the other cosmetics even come close when it comes to pocket per capita. Vanguard's war gear options are quite boring though. You get BD1 pretty early on, and then the rest are kind of a wash, unless you want to swap him out for his cousin with a level 3 chin. Sniper's war gear, by contrast, is its main cosmetic bit. All of the cloaks they have to pick from, which cover all of the other class cosmetics, and when playing them, you literally can't see anything except the cloak. Said cloaks are completely uncustomizable, and clip absolutely horribly with some of the pauldrons. This is by far the most egregious clipping with any of the game's cosmetics, which leads me to believe that the Deathwatch pauldron and Titus's skull pauldron probably weren't intended to be available as cosmetics until the last minute. None of the other classes have clipping problems with them though, just Sniper's gigantic cloaks. The normal pauldrons Sniper does have available are all the same. Play through and win all of the missions to get one extra CVS receipt on your pauldron. Play through them all again to get another one. Vanguard's pauldrons are similarly dull, but one of them does have unique chains. Vanguard does have unique chain cosmetics for most of his body parts, namely his right arm and pauldron, backpack, and chest piece, which can all have chains on them. But when put together they don't look very cohesive or like they're really meant to go together at all, which is rather disappointing when he could look like a completely insane person instead. As for headwear, Sniper's got a neat looking hood, but can't wear it with any of the helmets, which is a cardinal sin. At best they can wear this half face mask thing, which looks like it's out of Far Cry Blood Dragon. Vanguard gets a variant of this as well, from the absolutely horrible looking Reaver armor. I cannot stress enough how much I hate these guys' helmet, but thankfully you don't have to wear it. One of Vanguard's chest options does have this cute little tiny knife for a normal person, and when you equip Vanguard's actual knife to go alongside it, it's evident how comedically undersized it is. I'm not exactly sure why an Astartes would have a guardsman knife on their belt, but maybe it's from their husband, I don't know. Vanguard does have a smaller chest piece ornament, which is actually a way bigger deal than you might think. Everyone else is forced to have this gigantic ugly skull with wings draped over their chest, but the Phobos armors don't have to. You can if you want, but thankfully, Vanguard has a tiny little skull as an option, and Sniper is the only class in the entire game that can have no chest ornament whatsoever. If your taste is completely opposite mine and you really like it though, both have war gear options that put it back on. I promise that I will only think you're kind of insane. Neither of these two classes can have good-looking symmetrical knees unless you really like horseshoes, and I seriously do not understand why it's like this. The Phobos football knee padding looks really good, but we're forced to have skulls on everything instead. Both Vanguard and Sniper get themselves an A tier, carried by Phobos. No class really ends up an S tier because all of them have significant problems with the cosmetics available. Tactical's headpieces can't be customized, Assault is a travesty, Vanguard isn't particularly interesting or cohesive, Sniper and Bulwark can't customize really significant cosmetics, and Heavy is, well, really dull, as much as the double acronches are funny. This video was far more effort than it was worth, and my asthma has been kicking my ass as I've been trying to record this, as you've probably been able to pick up. I do read all of my comments, so let me know if you think I got a placement wrong and incorrectly believe Assault isn't a fashion disaster. Thanks to my patrons, Emmy and Potato especially. Like, comment, subscribe, you know the drill, and have a good night.